Coffee Buzz Friday. Gavel stick. How the heck are you guys? Hey, look, I just realized that I have my son's slobber all on the left side of my black hoodie that I'm currently wearing. And the problem with realizing that in the first minute of the show is when you stare back at the camera and you see that in the camera, you aren't going back. So it is what it is. And maybe you wouldn't have noticed it, maybe you would have. I clearly noticed it right away, and I noticed it right as the countdown was occurring. And we're in it. We're in the thick of it. And one of the things that you now notice is my kid sits on my left side, right over my heart. So in the sentimental side, I've never really thought about that until now. So maybe that's the point of me seeing that in the camera, is that I hold my kid on my left side and rock him. And usually, as you can tell, we had a slobbery morning, so I have a lot of slobber with me. But I've got the energy of Big O with me as I do this coffee buzz, and I'm stoked to do it with you guys. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with it. I got my Fortunate Youth hat back on, my Carhartt hoodie. I had one of these hoodies that I left in Florida years ago, and I was bummed out about it. And I don't know if I ever told this guy this, but Tony Vaca was his hoodie. He's a guy that I've never really taken much from. If anything, it's probably vice versa. He's probably taking a lot from me. But I'm pretty sure I stole that hoodie from him. I loved that. I loved that hoodie, and I just like this all black look. I like the Carhartt style. It's a cozy hoodie, but I also think it's fashionable to a degree. And so I lost that, which is a bummer. There's probably some karma there. And I went out and actually bought this one. I don't remember when I got it, but I definitely enjoy and I like it. But I got 3 questions for today. I'm ready to hammer them. I've really enjoyed the last couple coffee buzzes. Hey, look, I'm headed back to Minnesota here soon, and I'm trying to get the Otter back online. I called them the other day, Nolan Johnson, and I think we'll have the Bull a few times too, the old Steve McGuigan. Minnesota is the birthplace of my podcasting career, and I'm really looking forward to getting some of these guys back on here with me. I've been alone in the desert for maybe a little too long, but we're going back up to the Midwest. So anyways, let's hammer some of these questions that we got. So this first question, what would you do if you knew you would not fail? What would you do if you knew you would not fail? Ooh, what would you do if you knew you would not fail? Judge stick, gavel time. What would I do if I knew I would not fail? I don't know off the top. I don't know if I like that question. Obviously, it doesn't matter if I like it or don't like it, but I don't know if I like the question purely for the fact that anything that I have done in my entire life, I have failed at it to some degree. In failing, failing it has to be subjective, same as succeeding, because what is good, right? What is success? Because if I think about failing, it's like, did I really fail as a high school athlete? I draw so many of my stories from sports because it consumed my entire life up to my mid 20s. And in that regards, did I really fail ever as a high school athlete? Probably not in the eyes of people who would watch. I don't really think I failed anything in baseball. I was always winning championships, always on good teams, always typically one of the best players. A lot of times I was the best player. I was always getting awards and accolades. I had tons of success in college. I failed miserably in baseball. But the question is, what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail, right? What would you do if you knew you would not fail? Because my first thought to that, if I could go back 20 years ago, I would just say I would play baseball and make it to the big leagues and not fail. But I feel like if you've listened to me, you know where I'm at with this. I don't think that can be positive. That in itself would be failing. That's why I don't like the question. Because if you knew you would not fail, all the best stories, all the campfire stories that we have are from failure. And all of our massive wins in life are from failure. I'm not saying that we need to go try to fail. I think one of the coolest things, that piece of advice I got years ago from a business mentor of mine is he said, fail fast. If something's not working or not selling, you need to kill it fast, kill it early. And so I liked that piece of advice. I really can't, it just seems so materialistic for me to answer that question because it would be so simple. It'd be like, okay, what would you do if you knew you would not fail? I would start any business that I want. I would play in the big leagues right now. I would have the most loving relationships, the most exotic, loving relationship imaginable. I would have all the money that I want to build my fantasy factory. That's probably the answer, actually. That would probably be my answer. My answer to that one would be the vision that I've had in my head for many years about the home that I want to own and the place that I want the house to look like and the stuff that I want on it with the home. I have my vision of. I'm not going to share it on this. I would do that. I would have my fantasy factory, Rob Dyrdek style. I would have my house exactly the way I want it to look, and I would do that through my business endeavors, and I would do it in the next like week because I'd want that to be over with, and because I know I'm not going to fail. I don't like the question. I'm sorry. I'll keep it anonymous for this topic, but I just have to be blunt about it. It's not that nothing's not coming to me right now. It's just more of I can't get an answer out of it because anything that I've ever done in my life, I've failed at every single one of them. I've failed at relationships. I have failed in my parts of being a son, at being a brother. I've failed at being a friend. I've failed in my athletic career. I've failed in my educational career. I've failed in my entrepreneur career. I've failed in my professional career. I've failed at everything. So maybe I just can't get my mind to think about what life would be like without the opportunity of failure. That's my answer. What would you do if you knew you would not fail? No, I don't have an answer. I'm moving on to the next one, which is kind of, no, it's not similar. What's the most important lesson you took from a past relationship? From a past relationship, so it's not like the most recent past one. What's the most important lesson you took from a past relationship? Gavel, sorry. What's the most important lesson I took from a past relationship? Well, I hope that if whoever's listening to this, I hope that you're also thinking about this with me. So let's think together as a group about a past relationship or past relationships that we had. There's two past relationships that I've had that stick out to me heavily. There's a lot that stick out to me. It's not extremely fair to target two, but there's two that I run back a lot in my mind, a lot. In the first relationship, when I think about that relationship, the reason why I think about both relationships is they were both stemmed from the same me. And the same me of the relationships was I couldn't have been something else. So this goes back to that one of failure. I wish I wouldn't have failed at this, even though I failed at it. But if I wouldn't have failed at that, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I would imagine everybody listening to this would say the same thing because I think that I think that we're the same. I think all of us are just the same, playing this thing out together, this illusion together. But if I use these examples of what I learned from this past relationship, I'm going to stretch it out to past relationships because a lot of these two specifically, they came from the same me. I started them from the same me. And that me was in a position of survival and scarcity, which I think is a hard place to grow anything. It's one of the reasons why I think my last business failed. And what has failed, right? So it didn't really fail. In fact, it was fine. I had to leave it, but in my mind, the failure of it was needed to get me to the next adventure. So I don't like that last question. I'm sorry. But the me that started things out of scarcity and insecurity, usually in a relationship, what I've found is that you search for the relationship to fill the gap of insecurity. So you use an external source to essentially, we'll say, tape up or glue over the parts of yourself that you are unwilling to acknowledge or unwilling to expose yourself to. And so the problem with that in a relationship is that eventually you are going to be used and you're going to be essentially lied to, and you're going to hold the person in the relationship on the wrong pedestal because you're going to need them to be that person. They inevitably cannot change. That's where the relationships fail. Because if they change, then your viewpoint of them can't move with them because they were filling a part of you. And I think when you come into a relationship in a sense of wholeness, and you're not using other people to fill maybe something that you're insecure about, you're unaware of, or a trauma of yourself, and maybe a scarcity mindset, you're not using somebody else to complete you. You feel more whole, more authentic, more aware of yourself. You're more comfortable with yourself. You're more who you are. I think relationships become a lot more sustainable because the other person is able to leave it however, whenever or however they want, and you are going to be capable of allowing them to leave, not needing them or trying to grip them or hold them. But at the same time, if they change, you're able to allow and accept their changing because it doesn't impact your inner world. And I think that's something that I've learned from past relationships. And it's been something that has always resulted in such pain materially and egotistically because it's hard. Relationships are hard in general because we all want certain things. And it's hard to not want something from a relationship. And so a lot of the times I've talked a lot about this in recent years, especially in a lot of the work that I do with people and considering relationships as transactions. And I know on the surface that sounds so bad. Maybe it doesn't on this podcast, but it does typically when I talk to people about this in person, is because I talk often about how there's tiers to transactional relationships. If I'm running a business and I work with you, I'll use myself as an example. For example, I teach breath work and I play sound bowls. I perform sound baths for people. I guide people in saunas or cold tubs. And so if you are sitting there doing breath work, listening to sound, and I'm putting you through a 60-minute sound bath, me moving sound or creating frequency and sound through the bowls or guiding the breath work is transactional. So you're going to have to pay for that transaction. Now, our relationship, whether it's friendly, whether it's deep, could be surface, whatever, maybe we become friends, maybe we're just acquaintances, whatever, the depth of that is another layer of transaction. That doesn't need to have a monetary need to it. So in this way, I've worked with some people that are the same age as me, or people that have become friends as me, and I've had to learn how to separate the two and realize that when I guide a working session or I'm providing a space for a session, that is 100% transactional. And I've learned not to give that away for free to anybody, even if you are a very close friend of mine. I rarely, if ever, perform anything that I do for a living for people for free. I used to do that all the time. Now I'll be friends with people and talk about what I do or share something like this on a podcast. This is a free service. Now I'm asking for your time, so that's transactional to a degree. But I think that everything is transactional. And I think that so often we don't like the thought of that because we think that you should trust everybody and all relationships should be trustworthy. I think that that's a fallacy. I don't think that that's accurate because it's so hard to even trust yourself. How much of you do you trust? And it's enough of an energy usage to try to learn who you are and trust who you are to the degree in which the only thing that you could falsely expect from other people is that you trust them and they trust you to the highest degree of actuality. I don't think that that's true or possible. I also don't think that that's needed. I don't think that you need to trust people because they don't need to trust you. It's transactional. So if I can trust me and spend most of my time trusting me at the core, I think above that is trusting God, which is faith. And so having faith in God and being comfortable in the unknown, being okay with the certainty of death at the end of this experience, and following my intuition from a higher source, a higher power, a higher being. The tier below that is trusting my ego, trusting my awareness to my ego, trusting the character that I play in the material world, in learning that character as best as I can, trying to understand the thoughts and the energy that goes and the emotions that go through my own being. And then the next tier of that trust would be with family members and significant others. In my example, that to me, that's my wife. My wife is my most trusted partner and needs to uphold the highest degree of trust imaginable. Now, it doesn't mean that we'll ever get to actuality, but it should be to the highest degree. We both talk about this often. God is above us, and then it's us, and then it's our children. And in that order. So I can't be her savior. Like she can't be mine. God is our own individual relationship. And then you kind of work down your tiers. So you can kind of think of this as friends. Like, what is a best friend? Having many best friends, I think, becomes a fault in your armor and your own awareness. I know I'm going long on this. I like this question. But I think that having multiple best friends is a faulty armor, because that goes back to what I was saying about what I've learned from past relationships, is that people are evolving too rapidly and differently than you. So to say this is my best friend and the best friend has to be this best friend, I think that's inaccurate, because I have many friends that I've met at certain parts of my life and I'm no longer that person. Now, they're a best friend of mine at that part of my life, but they don't have to be my best friend today because the transaction has changed. It doesn't have anything to do with the disassociation of love or a lack of authenticity or appreciation for those other people. It just means that the transaction has changed, because largely we just don't have, I know we want to, but we don't have the capacity to handle the world's problems. We don't have the capacity to talk to everybody in our contact lists on our iPhone. We're still tribal species. So largely, if you move somewhere, you become a part of that group. If you live in a certain part of the country or a certain city, you become a part of that. And so the transactions inevitably have to change. And so what I think that I've learned about past relationships and completing it and where I'm at right now with this thought is that in my past relationships, a lot of times, especially when I was just younger, I think it's just natural. I think it's a natural state of maturation. I think all of us go through this. But earlier parts of my life, I saw relationships as surface for sure, but I saw them as the cement to some of my holes. So I looked at people and looked at certain things as completions to me externally. And it was very much so ego driven. And so much of the ego needed certain people to be into my life to make me more of who I wanted to be. And that's a painful process, but I think it's a worthy process. And I think we all go through it to some degree. There's my answer. Gavel up. Gavel freaking up. I've got a few here, so I'm only gonna do one more. Yeah, a lot of these ones have around talk. Where did I had like 15. I'm just trying. I had the other one that I saw that I really liked. Selfishly. Okay, I'll go with this one. This is kind of similar, so we'll just be on the same vein for this entire coffee buzz. What do you think about when you are alone? What do you think about when you're alone? What do I think about when I'm alone? So the answer to that question is why I have my son's spit all and slobber all over my hoodie. When I'm alone, I'm always thinking about material. Material being the conversation I am having with you guys right now. I try to test my material and things like this, like a coffee buzz or the solo shows, because now I saw those questions, and I've said this on multiple shows before this, but I didn't know I was going to answer those questions before I got on this. I didn't sit down and look at them and think through my answer. I might see them when I sit down, and I know the question's coming, but I haven't answered it ever until I'm on this show, on this podcast. And so all these answers are off the cuff. And I think it's been a great pursuit for me for my life to do certain things like that. One of the things is I've always been corrected. I've noticed that over the last 10 years, people will send me DMs or text messages or call me and they'll correct me. And what is correction? Because so much of me will correct myself. after I think about it, because I'll think about these questions when I'm alone, and that's what ties me into the question. What do I think about when I'm alone? Right? I mean, that was what it was. What do you think about when you're alone? So I'll ponder on it. I don't care if it doesn't need to be right or wrong. I wouldn't say I don't care to be right or wrong because I do. That's not true. I obviously am a human. I want to be right, but I'm also work hard on it's okay being wrong. And being able to maintain that level of neutrality has only helped my own psyche. And I think a lot of that is just my passion for philosophy and what I've really gathered and understood about the ancient philosophers. I mean, when philosophy became massively prominent in the areas like Greece and those sort of parts of the world thousands of years ago, that was the main thing. I mean, one of the main questions was who is God? And the point of the question was to never have an answer. And I think that so much of life is contemplative. And when I'm alone, I'm so often contemplating. And it's hard to contemplate with other people because the more people that we come across, things become definitive. And I find that, right? When I'm alone and I can contemplate, I can be okay not having to have a definitive answer. I can just contemplate it. And I found that the exercise of contemplation alone while you're alone, to me, it's when you're with God. You're floating in the abyss of energy and thought, and you're justifying yourself only to a source. So it's being alone. Friedrich Nietzsche has a great sentiment about being alone. He says, if anyone steals his solitude, I don't know the quote exactly, but it's along the lines of, he enjoys solitude so much that if anyone were to steal that from him, it's like one of the biggest disgraces that you could do to a person is to take away their solitude. And so I started this with talking about my kids slobber on my shirt because when I'm alone, everything is about material. I'm thinking about material regularly. And I talk about this often with other artists, in the fact that when you have something that you want to talk about, you don't know when it's going to hit. So I don't know that it's going to hit me tomorrow at 10 a.m. and I can set my schedule up to be creative. I've had to argue this with people for many years. A lot of people who aren't creators or dive into the artistic world, they're very structuredized, which is fine, whatever, it's part of life. But the point is that when you're so consumed with routine and married to structure, you miss the rebellious act of creation because so much of creation happens against the structure of society. And so if I had this hoodie on, I wasn't concerned with how I looked on the podcast. I was concerned with the fact that I had creative thoughts flowing. I had the ability and the energy where I felt like sitting down and answering questions. And it was time. And so then I noticed that this was off, but that's part of the art. Not that it's hey, I'm going to do this so people can see this and I can show the slobber and have a story and a metaphor to share. No, it's the fact that art is art. Art is pure, it's raw, it's in real time, it's presence. And I think that when you're alone, you get the deepest sense of art that flows into you, mostly alone when you're in nature. And I think that when you're connected in solitude and you're alone with your thoughts, you start to contemplate in a non-definitive way that allows you to ponder and feel the sense of awe for the mystery of life. And as I've gotten older, I've always liked being alone. Anyone who's close to me knows that. It's not that I don't like people. I always get made fun of for that on the surface. Like, yeah, I don't like people. That's not true. I love people. I love being alone. And I feel connected to that quote of Nietzsche that if someone takes my solitude away from me, it just hurts me because then it means that I can't think through material, I can't contemplate. And so I don't think it's not being around people. I think that it's making sure that when you're around people, it's meaningful. It's never made sense to me to go to somebody's house to watch football all day on a Sunday and play fantasy football on my phone. I mean, I know people are into that, and I think that I'm sure there's some really cool stuff to that. It's never made sense to me because I'd rather be alone and think with my thoughts. Now, if I went to somebody's house on a Sunday and we sat across from each other and had some coffee or some tea and we contemplated together, that would double up the euphoria that I feel in my own mind for contemplation. It's kind of the 1+1=3 type deal. So that would be very intriguing to me. And that's one of the reasons why I like nature so much, because nature's kind of a multiplier. It's like if I'm alone in my house, I have some material that I can think through and contemplate, but if I'm alone in a mountain, it's a lot different. It's a lot different. So I hope that helps or answers it. Here's a little crystal. If you guys can't see it, who's not watching this, but this is a crystal. My buddy Nick Bugstead got this for me the day before I got married. Much love to Nick, my guy. Much love to the people. Much love to the questions. Happy Friday. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Take care. Cheers.